Hi everyone, welcome to CSI Drumming, part of the Berklee Institute for Education and Special Needs Digital Learning Series. My name is Gretchen Hary. I am a white female with brown hair pulled back with bangs, and I wear glasses. I'm wearing a pink shirt, and behind me is a blue background. I'm a percussionist who teaches private lessons, drum classes, and percussion ensembles at Neighborhood Music School in New Haven, Connecticut. I also teach at ACES Educational Center for the Arts and ACES at Chase. And I'm going to talk to you today about my program, CSI Drumming. This includes the benefit of incorporating drum circles into your programs and how to use them to target specific skills, especially for individuals on the autism spectrum. Individuals with autism spectrum disorder, ASD, often present with deficits in communication and socialization. This may include joint attention, eye gaze, eye contact, initiation, imitation, reading body language, and symbolic gestures. Research on understanding ASD and the effect of those diagnosed is an ongoing process, and because of this, new books, articles, and information are constantly being published. As this new information becomes available, it helps us to understand just a little bit more about how individuals with ASD think, feel, and communicate. Now, drum circles have been shown to have therapeutic effects on individuals and are used for improving health, communication, and to help with stress. Music has often been called the universal language. So when two people who do not speak a common language are able to sit down and create music together, they're communicating without using words. There's something very powerful about drumming that brings everyone into focus, causes joint attention, and allows us to speak and communicate without words getting in the way. Previous research has already proven that drumming and rhythm can reduce stress, have calming effects, relieve pain, and help one to focus. And it is possible that someone with ASD may find drumming quiets the mind, eliminates the sensory overload, and allows him or herself to get lost in the rhythm. By using the drums, individuals may find a gateway in rhythm that allows them to become aware of other people, to make eye contact, have joint attention, and initiate conversation. Now, some of you may already use various drums in your classes. Maybe you even do drum circles with your students. But depending on the students and their abilities, sometimes drum circles can be very successful. Other times we might be pulling our hair out because we can't get a groove going, students don't understand what we want them to do, or everyone just bangs away and we end up walking away with a headache. I've designed a drumming program that allows everyone to participate and succeed. It works with mixed levels, and if you have aides or paras in the room, they can also join in and are actually encouraged to. The main goal of the program is to use drumming to develop communication and socialization skills while being inclusive. It's therefore called CSI, Communication, Socialization, Inclusion, Drumming. And don't forget, it's also just a lot of fun. Just to give you a brief history about this program, in 2011, I was asked by a speech and language pathologist to create a drumming program to be used in conjunction with a class she was teaching on communication and socialization for individuals with ASD. It was actually her idea to use the drums to highlight the topics she was discussing in class. Together, we created 1-hour sessions that ran for 8 weeks. And each year I would get together with her and we would discuss the drumming activities, the ones that worked and the ones that didn't, and we would create new ones. Through trial and error and my previous studies in the graduate certificate program in music and autism at the Boston Conservatory at Berklee, I have gained new knowledge and skills that have allowed this program to flourish. I've since branched off and created a program that can be used in any school setting to help work on communication and socialization skills while also being all-inclusive. So a few things I just want to point out, take a moment to tell you about, is most drum facilitators will suggest that everyone go through training to become a facilitator. And while I do think this is important for leading certain types of drum circles, I also believe that it's not necessary for my program. While this program is like that of other drum circles, there's many aspects that are different. The most important being that it's designed to be used by music teachers. This program allows teachers to do what they already do on a daily basis: lead a group of students in activity. You give the students the instruction and the tools they need to do the activity, and then you step back and allow the students to work on their own. The students work with each other, communicate, use critical thinking, are present in the moment, and learn to grow. Keep in mind, each group will function differently. Some will be more social and have a high degree of communication, while others will struggle to make that eye contact. Some have a stronger sense of rhythm, no problem creating a groove. Others will struggle to find a beat. Some may need to do each activity multiple times for longer periods, while others will sail right through the program. It's up to you, the facilitator, to read the group and pull from the activities as needed. Also remember, group size will have an effect. So for example, if you're doing a call and response activity where each student will take a turn, a group of 20 will take much longer to go through it than a group of 7. Some students may have difficulty transitioning from an activity quickly, so you may want to choose only 1 or 2 activities per session, gradually increasing that number over time. You may also choose to stay on one activity for an extended period if you see the students are having fun, if they're communicating clearly and using eye contact and body language. For your setup, first you want to put the chairs in one big circle. If you have more than 30 people, you're going to want to do additional circles. Try not to have more than 30 chairs in one circle. And so if you create more than one, just make sure that you create aisles so that you can move around and get between everyone. For instruments, use what you have access to. The more variety you have, the better. Sometimes it's nice to have a mixture of the membrane, wood, metal, and shaker sounds. I personally use the Comfort Sound technology by Remo. They're designed with a comfortable sound that is not overstimulating, and it's ideal for sound restrictive environments. And they make drumming accessible for people with sensitivity to sound, including people with autism and other special needs. Always keep in mind your students who do have sound sensitivity. I always have a pair of headphones on hand. You can find them at any hardware store, or the Vic Firth ones are really nice too. You're also going to need some type of device to play audio. That can just be a portable speaker, through your iPod is what I do. You just want to make sure that the sound will be loud enough that you can hear the music over top of all the drumming. So let's dive in. This is what your activities look like. So each one will have an overview, which is a basic description of the activity. Skill development. It will list the specific skills that are used or targeted within that activity. Your process, which is your step-by-step instructions for performing the activity. Accommodations and modifications. So that's for students who have maybe limited mobility, sound sensitivity, unable to see or hear, or nonverbal, etc. And then Talkback, which is your discussion topics and/or questions. So after each activity has been performed, it's important to have a discussion or talkback with the students. And I feel the talkback is one of the unique and important parts to making this program successful. So the purpose of the activity is to target and develop the specific skills. The talkback then helps the students realize how those skills that are learned on the drums can then be adapted to everyday communication and socialization situations. Some of the activities may need to be performed again after the first talkback, and this helps the students become aware of specific eye contact or body language, which will help them be more successful with the activity. And then there's always a second talkback after that. So the first activity I always do with my students is the one I call Getting to Know You. This helps the students ease into playing the instruments and get comfortable with taking turns and introducing themselves. This activity also allows me, the facilitator, to assess the level of physical abilities and/or limitations of all of the students. The skill development that it will target is verbal communication, nonverbal communication, joint attention, and self-expression. So the process. I always explain and demonstrate each activity first. So for this one, you will start by stating your name and creating a short burst of sound on an instrument to express your feelings. It can be any sound, does not have to be a rhythmic one. So I would say, "Hi, my name is Gretchen." Then everybody else would repeat and say, "Hi, Gretchen," and try and create my sound on their instrument. Some accommodations and modifications for this one. So if you have someone who's nonverbal, they can always sign their name. If you have a pad, they can always write their name. Or maybe if they have a friend or someone else in the room who would like to say their name for them, you can have them do that. If someone is unable to hit an instrument or say hold a stick or something, you can try placing a shaker on their wrist so they can make a sound when they move. You can also do a ribbon or something so that they can do a visual expression. If someone is unable to move their body, you can always let them do a vocalization for how they feel. For the talkback, I always ask if there's anyone who can repeat everybody's name, and it's always a great time for someone with a really good memory to shine. I also ask if there's anyone who can repeat all the rhythms or sounds. Maybe there's a student who has a really good recall with sound and can actually do that. I then ask each student to identify one other person, either by looking at them or pointing at him or her, and repeat either their name or create the rhythm or sound associated with that person. So that's an example of the first activity and how all of the activities are laid out. So let's move on to the next. To make activities successful, it is important that the students understand the cues given to them by you, the facilitator. And these cues help to instruct the students when to start drumming and when to stop. Going over these basic directions will lay the groundwork for the rest of the program. And it will be most successful when you practice it multiple times. Begin with vocal and body commands, and then eventually you can fade out the vocal commands. Skill development that will be targeted will be working memory, following directions, eye gaze, reading body language, and symbolic gestures. So the first process is to make some music on their instruments. I say make noise and use those words, but you can come up with anything you want. And so my vocal cue to the students is, let's all make noise. The visual cue is usually outstretched hands, and I'll go up fast back and forth with my hands to imitate that I'm playing on the drums. It's a great way to start because there's no groove, no rhythm, it's just making noise. Next, I move into dynamics. For dynamics, I raise my hands, palms up high for loud, palms down low for quiet. I begin by crouching down really close to the ground for quiet with my hands down and my whole body down. And then, and I'll say, everybody quiet, in a very quiet voice. When I want them to go loud, I jump up high, bring my arms all the way up and say, everybody loud! And I use a very loud voice as well. With this, I find beginning with that extra body movement of crouching down and jumping up can sometimes get the attention of students who you might not otherwise be noticing you, and it just helps bring them in. I also find with that body movement, students will look at me, and when I'm close to the ground, their hand automatically comes close to their drum. It's like she's way down there, and without realizing it, their hand gets really low. And when I come up higher, they follow and their hand comes up high. And if you know with drums, closer you are to the drum, the quieter it's going to be. Further away, the louder the sound. So without even realizing what they're doing, they're creating those dynamics. You might play around with it. Some groups you might not need to use the verbal commands if you can get them all to get that joint attention and follow you right from the start. When to stop is a very important cue for your group to learn. So I stand in the middle of the circle and I kind of rotate around trying to make eye contact or get attention of as many of the students as I possibly can. When I have their attention, I count down with my fingers, using verbal command first as well. 4, 3, 2, 1, stop. And you can use just the fist for stop, or the motion I'll use the most, count down, 4, 3, 2, 1. My arms sweep across my chest like I'm saying safe in baseball, and I jump at the same time on that downbeat. So it'll be 4, 3, 2, 1, stop. And I like that one the most. I'm usually dancing with the music as well, so it's a great way for me to really get the stop to happen. But you can play around and use what you want. And again, start with the verbal, then you can remove it. The next one, if we've stopped and you want them to start, try 1, 2, let's all play. So what I'll do is maybe if it's the beginning of the circle and we don't even have a groove established, I might stand in the circle with an instrument, getting a groove going. 1, 2, let's all play. And then I might point to them on that first downbeat. Another thing I could do, 1, 2, let's all play. You can kind of play around with it, and then after a while, 1, 2, let's all play, or 1, 2, and start to fade out some of that verbal cues. Then you can stop them all of a sudden. And then if you want them to get back into playing, you can say back to the groove. So it would be 1, 2, back to the groove. Boom, and you start playing again. So once you've introduced the students to all of these directions, getting them to make noise, when to play, when to stop, how to do some dynamics, try applying them all, just kind of going from one to the next. Remind them to use their eyes to follow you as a conductor. So accommodations and modifications, this can be a lot for this one. So with a more advanced group, always keep in mind, you're not always going to have students who are having difficulty. Sometimes you might have to bump it up to challenge them more. So you can always ask a volunteer to come to the center of the circle and be the leader. Let them do the directions. Don't force it though. You don't want to scare anyone away or have them become unresponsive, but just ask for volunteers. I always print out a diagram for each student. Some may need to refer to the sheet to understand what they are seeing of the facilitator do. You can see an example of the counting of the fingers and the safe in baseball. And I'm also going to attach that sheet for your convenience if you'd like to print it out. You may still need to provide verbal cues if you have someone in the class with visual impairment. You may be able to partner them with another student who can relay the cues, or you just might have to keep the verbal going. So the talkback for this one, always important. Are you able to know what the facilitator is asking you to do? Are the signals coming from them clear? Were you able to remember the body signals and what they meant? And then maybe you want to ask someone to demonstrate your loud, quiet start and stop. Why is it important that we all understand what the facilitator is asking? So how does that affect the music if we're not all together, if we don't stop all at the same time, or if we don't start at the same time? And how can this relate to being in maybe math class, gym, a fire drill, etc.? Talk to the teachers, find out what's going on in their lives and how you can relate some of this stuff to what they're doing in class. So I mentioned before that you may have some groups that are wonderful at creating a groove and you can get it going, and you have others that are having some trouble. So with those, I like to put on some music. A couple examples. One is by Kalani Das. It's in his book, The Amazing Gymnasium. It comes with activities and it comes with the CD. He's got this piece called Rolling into Rhythm. It's about 8 minutes long and it's just really something to groove along with. Another one is Christine Stevens, and she has her book, The Art and Heart of Drum Circles, which also comes with a CD/DVD. And she's not only has 4/4 groove, but she's got the 6/8 groove. There's also another one on there that's a funk groove. So she really starts to go into different styles, which is really great for getting your students to feel those different time signatures. And I'm also going to attach a link to those recordings for you. So I also myself personally like to use songs from different genres and have the students drum along. I'll open up a lot of my sessions with that just to get them in the moment and playing, getting them to follow some dynamics. And then I offer a chance for the students to suggest pieces. But I'm a little sneaky because I say if you want your piece played, you have to come into the circle and conduct it for us. And so some students will be all about that. Some might shy away, and that's okay. But a lot of times the ones that shy away, by the end of the weeks, as the session goes on, all of a sudden they're standing in the center and they're doing theirs. And it works great for the talkback when you say, could you clearly understand what they were asking you to do? How is it different than maybe what the teacher was doing? So really good talkbacks there. There's many, many more. The last one I just mentioned, I call jamming to music. Some more of my activities move around the room, transition decision, call and response, soloing, vocalization pieces, and I bring in the boom whackers at the end because that's always so much fun. So at the end of the first class, if you just did those 2 activities that I mentioned, you will have, the students will have worked on introductions, 4 steps to communication, thinking with their eyes and ears, conversational reciprocity and turn taking, sending a nonverbal cue to others that you're listening, and they will have begun to learn the superlinguistics of the drum circle. So just a few last things to remember. Try to rotate instruments. Always change it up after an activity. Tell the students to put the instruments back in the center of the circle and grab a new one. You want to do what you can to let the students participate. So get out of the way of students who can go on their own, and that will free you up to go around and assist others. And you want the circle to really be able to function without you. That's our ultimate goal. Try to connect the communication you're having within the music to daily activities as much as possible. Again, talk to the teachers of those students and other subjects. Find out what they're working on, what they need help working on. One of the greatest connections I had was the vocalization piece, talking about speaking clearly. My students right away connected it with having to be on the public bus and not understanding the driver because he was mumbling into the microphone, so they couldn't understand when their stop was coming. Always remember, don't force it. If an activity is not working, move on to the next one and try coming back later. So I want to thank you for joining me today. Again, my contact information is here. I also have the link to the products, and you'll also find a link to those tracks and the piece that I mentioned. Thank you, everyone.